Welcome, Ukraine reports unrelenting Russian attacks on key city of Bakhmut. Russia's military on Thursday pressed on with unrelenting attacks on the smashed eastern Ukrainian city of Bakhmut and also shelled the southern city of Kherson, officials in Kiev said. The Kremlin sees Bakhmut as pivotal in its slow-moving advance through eastern Ukraine more than a year after it invaded its neighbor. Ukrainian Deputy Defense Minister Hanna Maliar, writing on Telegram, said heavy fighting gripped all parts of the Eastern Front. She said pro-Kiev forces repelled attacks in most areas. Most of the enemy's offensive efforts are occurring in the Bakhmut sector, she wrote, adding that Russian commanders had redirected troops there from other areas. The enemy is using its most professional units there and resorting to a significant amount of artillery and aviation. Every day, the enemy carries out in Bakhmut from 40 to 50 storming operations and 500 shelling episodes. The head of Russia's Wagner mercenary group said this week that his forces held 80% of Bakhmut, but the Ukrainian military said that figure was exaggerated. President Volodymyr Zelensky and other senior officials are pressing allies for more weapons that Kiev hopes will enable it to launch a major counter-offensive later this year. "We are readying our boys," Zelensky said in a video address late on Thursday. "We look forward to the delivery of weapons promised by our partners. We are bringing victory closer as much as possible." Officials said 2 people had died in Russian shelling of the southern city of Kherson. Away from the battlefield, Ukrainian officials are focusing on the massive rebuilding effort that will be needed as well as pressure from allies to show progress in tackling corruption. Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal, holding talks in Washington, promised to account for every dollar of U.S. aid and said reconstruction work should start this year. He welcomed what he called the continuous, ironclad, and unprecedented support of the United States. Shmyhal, speaking alongside U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, said Kiev had identified a priority funding gap of $14 billion needed this year. He said Ukraine had implemented measures to account for all assistance received and undertaken more anti-corruption reforms in the past year than during many previous years combined. Ukrainian officials are also pressing for membership in NATO, a move that Moscow has made clear it will not accept. There is no alternative to Ukraine's accession to NATO, Ukrainian Defense Minister Alexei Reznikov told a Black Sea Security Conference. Ukrainian agents have pursued drone attacks inside Belarus and Russia, contrary to U.S. and Western wishes, and leaders in Kiev have considered further targets outside Ukraine, according to a batch of leaked U.S. documents that appear to expose national security secrets. NBC News obtained more than 50 of the leaked documents, which have revealed much about Ukraine's military strengths and weaknesses. The documents posted online seemed to contain sensitive and highly classified material, though some may have been altered, Pentagon spokesperson Chris Maher said on Monday. 2 documents appear to show Ukraine launching operations inside other countries, though some allied nations have said any such actions might cause them to reconsider their ongoing support for Kiev. John Bolton, who served as National Security Advisor during the Trump administration, said the disclosures show how damaging the leaked documents could be. Releasing this information could be intended to undercut Western support for Ukraine by showing potential operations cross-border and by revealing purported weaknesses in Ukraine's air defense capabilities, he said. One document, marked top secret, notes 2 separate attacks allegedly orchestrated by Kiev that appear to have minimally damaged 2 Russian targets outside of Ukraine, a military airfield outside Minsk, Belarus, and a gas compressor station in the Moscow suburbs. In the first instance, officials with Ukraine's security service, Kiev's main intelligence agency, assessed that their agents in Belarus had disobeyed orders and attacked a Russian surveillance aircraft at a Belarusian airfield on February 26, according to the document. The document alleges the agents used a quadcopter drone and caused minor damage to the plane, a Rus A-50U, which the Russian state-owned weapons developer Rostet calls a flying radar that is capable of operating as a mobile command center. A spokesperson for the Security Service of Ukraine said the agency would be willing to comment after Ukraine's victory. Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko has allowed Russia to station its troops and military equipment in Belarus. He has threatened to enter the war on Russia's side if Belarus is attacked by Ukraine. Lukashenko had previously alleged without evidence that the February 26 attack was coordinated by Ukraine and the US's intelligence operations. Belarusian dissidents took credit for the damage and said on Telegram that participants in the operation were safe outside the country. A week later, according to the state news agency Belta, Lukashenko said that a terrorist trained by Washington and Kiev had orchestrated the attack and that more than 20 accomplices who are in Belarus have been detained. The rest are hiding. If you think that by throwing down this challenge, you will drag us into a war tomorrow, Lukashenko said in comments aimed at the US and Ukraine, you are mistaken. A similar incident occurred 2 days later in Russia, according to the same document. Russian officials reported that Ukrainian forces used a drone on February 28 in an attempt to strike a gas compression station in Moscow's suburbs. It is unclear whether the attempt caused any damage or who specifically caused the attack, but since the start of the conflict, Russian news agencies have reported numerous explosions inside the country near important infrastructure that do not have a clear cause. Separately, a second document from the Trove says that on February 28 Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky suggested striking Russian deployment locations in Russia's Rostov Oblast, which borders southeastern Ukraine, with unspecified drones. The document alleges that in conversation with Ukrainian Armed Forces Commander-in-Chief General Valery Zaluzhny and a second unidentified Ukrainian official, Zelensky expressed concern that Ukraine did not have the long-range missile capabilities to strike Russian troop deployments in Russia. He suggested Ukraine attack Russian troop locations across the border with drones instead. The Biden administration has declined to provide Ukraine long-range missile systems and even newer jets out of fear that Ukraine would strike targets within Russia, which is against U.S. policy. The unnamed second official said that Ukraine's capabilities could reach Tuapse, Russia, which is on the Black Sea coast more than 100 miles south of Rostov Oblast. Zelensky said striking that far was unnecessary.